Michael McCarthy is with me now and joins me on that story. Michael, just what's your own sense on this? BHP shares down 2.5%. If it really was not going to ship iron ore to China, you'd imagine, really, it was going to be a bigger fall than that, surely.
Absolutely, Ross. And perhaps one of the things that the author of The Art of the Deal and the current inhabitant of the White House has taught us is that negotiating tactics can sound scary, but that's all they really are. And that's the way the market has treated this news out of China. The stance that's been taken by the Central Buying Authority in China does look very much like a negotiating stance that's come at the perfect time for them. Not only are they in the midst of negotiations, but they're about to take a 2-week holiday. So all the steel producers have stockpiled iron ore ahead of that, and stopping shipments for a couple of weeks won't affect them in any way. So this does look very much like it's part of the negotiation, and that's certainly the way the share market treated it today.
OK, but there is also a bigger thing at play here, and that is that China has for a long time wanted to break the hold of the Brazilian miners and the Australian miners on the iron ore market. Pretty much, if you think Fortescue, Rio Tinto, BHP and then Vale are the 4 big players, having the Simandou mine come on board and out of Africa, having more suppliers coming out of different parts of the world gives them more choice and therefore more negotiability to be able to get better prices for that iron ore.
That's certainly true, and it's definitely a long-run consideration for the current producers, the major global players. But the issue for China is if it stops buying BHP iron ore, it's going to have to buy lower quality iron ore and have to pay more to ship it there because it's coming longer distances. So the economics here don't stack up at the moment. Now, that may change, particularly as more African mines come online. But at the moment, there's no viable alternatives outside those major global producers that China is already dealing with. So they would be cutting their own noses off if they were to stop buying from BHP totally. And of course, economically, that wouldn't make any sense. Now, we know that the Chinese take a long-term view, and they may do that despite the fact, but the chances are diminished once we look at the numbers for both BHP and China. It's compelling for them to continue this trade.
It's really interesting, Michael, because when we spoke with Mike Henry during the results season and then also to Fortescue as well, both of them sort of gave a bit of an indication. I think the long-term trend for iron ore prices must be down simply because China has built much of the infrastructure that it needs and therefore believe the long-term trend is probably for less. Plus, there's also more supply coming on board. So the big question is that iron ore prices have held up astonishingly well, notwithstanding that rhetoric that come out of both of those major miners.
Absolutely. Well, and real estate development in China has been a huge driver of the economy. We know that there are official efforts to shift away from that as a driver. So the ongoing demand for steel has been quite surprising. It has also picked up in areas where we were thought less likely to pick up, particularly across Europe. But at the moment, it is holding well. We see this with a number of commodities. The oil price is in the same situation with a lot of supply expected to come online. But for one reason or another, demand has held up and that supply hasn't come through. The iron ore price for the whole of the last 12 months has surprised many analysts because it is well above what they were estimating 12 months ago. But it's pretty clear the demand picture has not deteriorated globally in the same way we're all anticipating. Yes. And while that's the case, we're expecting we might continue to see surprises.
I'll tell you what, always good to have in the program. Michael McCarthy, Chief Executive at Moomoo Australia, the online broker. Thanks for your time.